Nietzsche is certainly a ripe topic for psychoanalysis. He, of course, had an enormous impact upon how Freud thought about these kinds of questions. The one factual point I would like to correct: it's certainly true that after his mental collapse, he was literally under the control of his sister and his mother. But for most of his adult life, he essentially lived on his own, traveling between different inns in northern Italy and southern France and Switzerland.
So there's one, since we're on biography a little bit, there's one thing that's always intrigued me about Nietzsche. As I understand it, he volunteered to fight with the Prussians in the Franco-Prussian War when he had a good job in Switzerland. Why did he do that?
I don't have a good answer to that question. I'm sure it must have had something to do with the cultural ethos of the time and a feeling of, Prussian pride.
I guess he didn't really fight. I misspoke. He was an ambulance driver or something.
He was an ambulance orderly. He was, in fact, injured relatively quickly since he was never blessed with good health. That the minor injury quickly knocked him out. So I think his entire military service lasted about 2 months, and perhaps put a damper on his enthusiasm for military conflict.
Brian, I want to ask you one last philosophical point. To whom is this higher morality accessible? How do I know? I mean, this goes back to something John said earlier. Are people just destined to be, one of the herd, or is every human born with the potential to reach something higher? So that if every human were born with the potential, then Nietzsche would be recommending to all human beings, live in this noble way. I mean, what's
Well, I think Nietzsche is often read, especially when he's read as a precursor of the existentialists, as somebody who thinks that everybody does have this capacity to sort of transform themselves ex nihilo, out of nothing, into something new. In many ways, I'm skeptical that that's actually his view. And this partly has to do with the influence of other views in the sciences at the time, which I think led Nietzsche to think that a lot more of this was predetermined from the outset. Yeah. He's what we'd call today sort of a genetic determinist.
Yeah.
But of course, that wasn't his way of conceptualizing the point. And so in that sense, the options we have to create ourselves may be much more limited than we'd ordinarily like to think.
Brian, it's been great talking to you. Before Ken gives you the official goodbye, I just want to say that your website, The Philosophical Gourmet, offers just a lot of information and some thoughtful opinion, and I personally want to thank you for it and all it does to help encourage people to study philosophy and gives them some guidelines about where and how they can do it.
So
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We've been talking with Brian Leiter of the University of Texas at Austin, author of Nietzsche and Morality. Brian, thanks so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure having you. Really.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
So long, Brian.
So, John, are you wise? You learn something new about morality?
Well, I learned a lot new about Nietzsche. Nietzsche I really liked as an undergraduate, and then as I became a kind of a professional philosopher in graduate school and earning tenure and writing analytical philosophy, I got sick of him, but now I'm sort of a fan again.
Yeah, we got a lot of Nietzsche scholars in our department, so we hear about this stuff a lot. This has been fun, though.